Hello there friends, Strawberin0 here. And today I am reacting to Darkwood, the greatest horror game with no jump scares by Bricky. Bricky is the guy who I have a bunch of reactions on my channel to his Warhammer 40k stuff. He's great with that. But I always wondered, because he has just normal game reviews, and I always wondered how good are they, you know? And I decided to give it a shot. This Darkwood review seems really popular, so I wanna start here and then just see how it goes. I have no idea like what style Bricky uses for game reviews. I wonder if it's gonna be like similar to his Warhammer videos or not, but let's dive in and see for ourselves, you know.
Devil fucked your mother! Get away from the house!
That's a good beginning.
We all know what a fairy tale is. There's Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel. Those are common, enjoyable fairy tales told through generations, but if we take a closer look at them, they come off as pretty dark. An old hag attempts to poison a young girl to death and kill the dwarves that get in her way. A young girl finds her grandmother eaten alive.
I mean, all the German like folk tales and children's stories are always so fucking brutal for no reason, man.
By a werewolf, all the while the wolf attempting to do the same.
And like specifically German, I don't know what Germans have with like brutality and like ridiculous consequences for simple mistakes in some of their like fairy tales.
Her. Hansel and Gretel literally get kidnapped by a cannibalistic witch in the
Yeah, exactly. Fucking exactly.
forest.
I wanna remind people that story is don't trust strangers, basically. That is a very extreme punishment for simply trusting a stranger one time when you're lost in the fucking forest.
This one is more okay though, because it's German. These are all happy, fun fairy tales we know. So what happens when you have a story that literally calls itself a dark fairy tale?
Exit. Show item. Eat the old lady. I bite into her body.
The mushroom juice squirts onto my face and clothes. I feel the woman's feeble hands trying to push me away, but they're too weak and my hunger is too great. She kicks about only slightly when I bite into her face. I swallow one chunk.
After an extremely depressing
You know, I seen this that like main shot from this game. Yeah, this one. I seen this a couple of times, but I never heard anything about this game. So this is very interesting.
After an extremely depressing monologue about a plague in forest ravaging Poland, you wake up on a desk. Looking around, you notice medical equipment in cages. You're a doctor. A doctor who appears to be doing his best to try and stop the plague. After a bit of tutorial, you immediately axe your dying dog and set out into a creepy forest to find an outsider who you believe to have the key to escaping this forest.
I mean, to be fair, that's just a regular Sunday on the countryside in Poland, you know? Like you step outside and, oh, death and famine, wow, I was surprised, I am so surprised to see you here. So yeah, this is pretty just, you know, just Polish countryside experience if you really think about it.
After some gentle persuasion, the game swaps focus to the stranger as you escape the doctor's house. And that's when things get weird.
Okay. Damn, those sprited graphics are really fucking cool.
You get taken to a hideout and the full game kicks off. Your objective? Get the key out of the forest back from the doctor. A simple premise, but completing it, less so. I think this is a good time to talk about jump scares and horror. For those of you who don't know, I'm kind of a pussy. Oh. Ah! But I maintain the idea that the jump
Okay, but to be fair to Bricky, like when you play Dead by Daylight and you suddenly, like last second, notice Michael Myers or Ghostface who are stalking you and coming towards you from behind, that shit is pretty scary though.
jump scare is an absolute crutch of both video games and filmmaking, especially filmmaking. One of my favorite horror films recently was It Follows, a movie that has maybe one jump scare in its runtime, but instead adds its horror through long, drawn-out, tense scenes and a feeling of extreme paranoia. Doesn't need to rely on startling its audience like so many other garbage horror movies do nowadays. If we go back a few decades, we have The Shining, a top 3 horror favorite of mine. I remember watching the scene where the dudes are doing a little solid sucky suck and just have that quick zoom and that awkward music adds a layer of like comedic fear that you can't get with a harsh cut and loud noise like a jump scare does. A jump scare can be done right, however. Going back a few years again, let's look at The Exorcist 3, with one of the most famous jump scares probably in history. A rubber band being stretched to its absolute limit until it finally snaps with that similar zoom that The Shining did. It's very, very good. But for most other mediums, it's a crutch. The thing that makes a big loud noise and goes ooga booga to freak you out and think the movie is scary. It's startling, but startling is not scary. I've done 2 playthroughs of Darkwood now.
Very, very true about the like absolute state of modern horror. Both games and both horror games and horror movies. Like recently, I have been playing Penumbra. It's a game, it's basically Amnesia, if you've ever played any of the Amnesia games. It's the same premise where you know, that physics interactions like in Half-Life, you pick up objects, you can move the door, slam it, oh shit, sorry. Move the door, slam it, you solve puzzles, there is no combat except for the first Penumbra, which really fucked up by having combat because I could just beat all of the scary dogs to death and then they wouldn't be scary because they are dead. So yeah, disarming you in video games is a really good idea. And like I was playing Penumbra and it really, obviously it has a lot of loud noises, sometimes it has sudden zooms, but the horror is much more existential and very subtle. The atmosphere is so fucking creepy, you cannot help but feel isolated and scared, actually fucking afraid of what's happening in the next room, or if like a horror beyond your comprehension is waiting at the end of this road that you're traversing. And Amnesia also did that. I need to replay The Dark Descent, but from what I remember, it shifted focus towards that jump scare factor a little bit. You know, when the monsters came out, it was a little more jump scary, it shook your screen, it made those noises, it, you know, like, it was literally more annoying than actually scary. But when all of those hit, your immediate response, automatic response was, you know, you jump basically when that happens. And then we arrive at Outlast, which is so many fucking jump scares back to back to back to back to back. Outlast had some great designs, it had some great atmosphere, and every time the game grabbed the camera and said, "Oh no, let me focus you on the scary thing. Let me be the director." It was so fucking annoying. I hate when horror games take control away from you because you know they are about to do some shit that is basically like cookie cutter pattern stuff to make you afraid instead of actually building up to scaring you. And yeah, that genre really just kept getting worse and worse and worse. There are some outliners. Alien Isolation is great at building tension without, like I said, grabbing your camera and doing the scary noises. It has its own like tools to build tension, and that's great.
And there's only thing that I might call a jump scare moment, which is right here.
Oh man, those are the old banknotes, if I remember. Yeah, Poland had a massive inflation. We basically almost had like Venezuela dollars. And when the new government stepped in after the Soviet occupation of Poland ended, they, I think they cut a couple of zeros from the end. So we had banknotes like 1 million złotych or PLN and 100,000. Like those were actual, you know, notes. And I think they cut like 3 zeros from all of them or something like that. And basically brought that value to like way more normal nominal, you know. Like the biggest banknote right now is 500, I think. Like this back then, this was one of the more common ones, you know. And it's a fucking 1,000. Holy shit. On one banknote. That's crazy.
A knock on the door. Everything else, completely natural. As a game, Darkwood doesn't appear rather scary,
I love that art style.
especially if you're
Holy
watching it
goddamn.
from this video. It's a top-down, isometric, I think is the word, survival horror game. And I don't mean Outlast, walk around in some bushes survival horror, that's just Deliverance. As the stranger, you don't need to eat or drink, or sleep for that matter. Your face is horribly messed up, and you're wearing the clothes of a scarecrow. Why? You'll learn in time. But what's important is that you can't eat and drink, so what do you do for the survival part? Well, you still have health, and you need to scavenge for things to help you survive the nighttime. In Darkwood, a day is roughly 11 minutes long, and the night is only 5. But that 5 minutes feels like an eternity, as you aren't allowed outside your shelter during it. In that shelter, you have the oven. It emits fumes to keep whatever horrors away and allows you to upgrade your character in various ways by turning organic material into some kind of essence that you promptly inject into your veins. However, the oven is all you have.
Yeah, that's also very that is also in the spirit of Polish countryside. I know a lot of wizards who cooked essence in their backyard to then consume it. Some of them believed it granted them magical powers, but must have mixed up something in their potion because it didn't work.
In your hideout, besides a crafting bench and a few windows. So your job? Board up the windows, get gasoline for your generator to keep the lights on, and grab Molotovs, bear traps, and weapons to survive what's coming for you. You do this until the morning comes around and you say hello to the best character in any video game ever, the Traitor. He's basically Jesus, or like Jesus's runner-up. Every time you survive the night, you gain reputation with the Traitor. This allows you to buy his goods, which you will desperately need. These can range from simple things like more wood and medical supplies, to weapon parts, and most importantly, a watch to help with the day-night cycles. Every day, he will be there with his warm, loving, mushroomy embrace, ready to help you into a nice new day. And what does that nice new
Man, traders in video games are fucking goated. They always buy the shit and the I don't need and sell me some really useful stuff. Like there are so... It's crazy how many iconic characters from video games are just traders who don't have like much to their story other than we'll buy your shit. Like the RE4 merchant is so iconic and he has no backstory basically. He just shows up, says, "What are you buying, stranger?" And that's it, you know. Love me some good trader characters that save your ass out of a pinch. That's why I hate when some games replace actual bone and flesh traders with like terminals that you interact with. Man, I don't give a fuck that it doesn't make sense for a trader to be in this nightmarish outpost or space station where I'm supposed to be alone. I want some guy to be crawling through the fucking vents, no matter how little sense it makes, to meet me at each point and throw some kind of a fucking one-liner so I can develop a friendship with this virtual NPC. Do not replace traders in video games with a fucking machine or something like that, okay? Unless it's a cool robot. Fallout New Vegas gets a pass here because some of the traders are really cool robots that I like, so...
New day entail? Well, you know your objective. Find the doctor that stole your key. You know where the underground passage is, but he does not. A man with a wolf's head meets you on your first night and with his Kalashnikov gently persuades you to meet him in the next part of the map. See, Darkwood's first zone is split into 3 different areas: the dry meadow, the silent forest, and the old woods, in that order. What makes it unique is that with every playthrough the map is completely changed, so you don't get to skip out on any exploration. Areas of importance are placed on the map when you arrive to them, but you won't know your location unless you're next to one of these landmarks. So you'll know if you're at the barn, but only if it literally says, "Hey fuckface, you're at the barn." Other than that, be like a normal human and use a map the real way. In each map are different landmarks that have their own loot and story to them. Some are just abandoned houses with a few dogs you need to kill or distract to loot. Some areas have savages protecting it and whacking their heads on trees, but offer things like shiny stones that sell for a ton back to the trader. Some areas are a bit interesting. My personal favorite is the wedding, though we will talk about that maybe in a bit. Either way, as you scavenge areas to upgrade your workbench, fill your essence, and sell to the trader, you'll soon realize your most valuable resource is time. Knowing how long you can be out there before night will greatly increase your chances of survival. That's why I always get to watch ASAP, because that information alone will help you out greatly. Once the night arrives, you better be back in the hideout. Want to know why you need to be back in? I don't know. I've never tried it any other way. I'm too chicken shit. Something's out there. I don't know what's out there, but it's gonna hurt me. So I've never gone outside during the night because I'm too fucking scared. From there, you'll be attacked by simple dogs or savages at your first hideout. A few events may occur as well. These are completely random and can vary from creepy music pulling all your furniture together, or even something as simple as a knock on the door with nobody doing the knocking. However, as you progress through the story, these get far more dangerous. Everything from huge packs of dogs to horrifying mutated monsters to giant red lights sucking away your health. And let's just say there's a reason you need to be prepared, because if you died during the night, you don't gain any reputation with the trader, and you need that shit. This is the general formula of the game. Rinse and repeat as you go to new areas, and they will all become progressively more difficult. The old woods in particular can be extremely challenging if you're not ready. These things in particular,
the fucking the way your view works in this game is genius. That you can get blindsided by an enemy entering the room when you're looking to the left. Holy shit, that's really cool.
Are not nice. That thing, it's not nice. And well, we can talk about the swamp in a bit.
What are you doing in my swamp?
So I've mainly been covering gameplay, but what about the thing I ranted about so heavily in the beginning, the idea of horror? Well, what Darkwood does here is pretty remarkable given the top-down setting. You see, you don't get that first-person haunted house horror game jump scare fest like you do with most modern horror games. With Darkwood, you have a cone of vision. This cone doesn't restrict you from seeing everything. Things like the environment that you pass by, houses and trees that you know haven't moved, just stick around. Almost like a normal person. You know for a fact your house is going to be there even if you turn around. However, creatures and certain objects in particular don't go by that rule. So if you want to run away from a horrifying creature, you have to turn your back on it and lose sight of it. This makes you immediately question, is it catching up to me? And if it is, how much time do you have before it actually arrives to you and kills your extremely fragile ass? This limited field of view is not a limited field of sound, however, and that is Darkwood's greatest strength. Its sound design. It's just beautiful. Tension is more often than not created without eyes, but with our ears. When something sounds wrong, when the aura of fear creeps in because of fake footsteps, adjusting objects, and noises that simply shouldn't be happening or you can't tell what's causing it, that's what sets you on edge. Combine that with environmental cues as well, like doors and furniture moving without knowing what is moving them, and you have a very tense game. This doesn't even cover the dream sequences you get almost every time you level up your oven, which are in their own right a weird, weird segment. The last thing I haven't really discussed is Darkwood's story. Ironic, as it's the thing I opened the video with. Dark Fairy Tale really is the best way to describe this game. No character has an actual name. You are the stranger, there's the wolfman, the traitor, the musician, the chicken lady, the mad doctor, the cripple, and of course the snail. Oh my god, the snail. This isn't all of Darkwood's characters, but they all maintain the same naming style and all have their own backstories. Some less important than others, but plenty that you like to learn.
Ah, my favorite character, the Ursus Tractor.
Learn about. The musician and the elephants are some of my favorites with the better storylines, but the Wolfman is my personal favorite character, and I have no idea why there isn't more furry shit about him. You'd think there'd be more. It's a complete bait. All the
Excuse me, Bricky? Bricky, did you check that? How do you know there is not more furry stuff of him out there? Were you checking? Were you on those not very Catholic sites again, Bricky? Shame.
characters are decidedly human in their actions and motivations as well. I wouldn't classify any of them except maybe one or two as overly good people, but you don't need to have characters you agree with to make characters you understand. Everyone's motivations are clear so long as you dig enough to find out what they are. Characters also make up the bulk of Darkwood's story. I mentioned earlier what the game's goal is: get your key and get out. That story is more important when you reach the end, but everything else is just learning about those that inhabit this dark forest. Speaking of all that, I'm going to be going into mild spoilers. This is for mainly the second chapter of the game, the swamp, as I mentioned earlier. I don't think it really matters a whole lot. I don't think it's a huge spoiler, but if you want to keep yourself in the dark as far as you possibly can, I'll leave a time code here. I will be discussing the ending after that, but I'll give you one more warning just in case. After you escape via the door, you will enter
I will just listen Bricky out.
Chapter 2 of the game. Chapter 2 isn't really like Chapter 1, as it isn't nearly the same time span. This part of the game takes place in a large swamp and will only last around a third of the time as the main section did. However, it is probably the part where the game wanes a little in quality for me. The story becomes much easier to understand, however. That's probably the plus side to it. You need to burn down this giant tree full of people in order to escape the forest, but can't do so unless you travel beneath the tree and get to its roots. Blocking you is a water tunnel that you need an oxygen tank for, so you need to get an oxygen tank, repair a compressor to fill it, then make your way to the tree. However, the difficulty takes a seriously sharp increase. Enemies are far more frequent and do significantly more damage to you. This is always the part I end up dying the most in. Before, I would mostly only die if I positioned badly or got surrounded in some way, but the swamp really bends you over. You will be going through ammo and weapons extremely quickly. Compensate for this a little by giving you a stronger loot. This only goes so far. Time is your biggest ally, and when you can't outrun most of the enemies, all that time healing, shooting, looting, and restocking will take its toll. In the first chapter, I could outfarm the enemies through good scavenging and picking my battles. In the swamp, I feel like I'm being slowly bled of my resources. This could be intentional, but perhaps it's just too harsh of a change for me to enjoy. Once you burn down the tree, you get the ending, which I will now spoil right away. Skip to this time code if you want to miss that. I know it's a lot of time codes, I'm sorry, but regardless, this is the ending. All right, we're good? Good. Once the tree is burned down, a ton of dead souls will come back and attack.
Wait, so this game only has 2 acts? Wouldn't you agree that's a very weird number of acts to put in a game? Usually, usually games have 3 acts at least because of the, 3-act formula, basically. Such a weird number to pick.
Attack you during the final night, with the radio also calling you a little bitch. Whether you die or not during this part, I'm not sure what happens, as I have never died during it, but either way, once it's done, you make your way through the burnt down tree and into the road home. You clear the forest and get to your horrible Polish apartment building. Talk to some of your friends, take your shoes off, make some to your horrible
Man, this is just 2023 Poland. All gray, all the pavement is cracked and fucked up. Like there is no happiness inside. Man, I feel like I'm back home. Bricky, you made me nostalgic. I miss my home. You know, full of smog and gray and all that concrete. And the smell of people burning plastics in their fucking fireplaces.
building. Talk to some of your friends, take your shoes off, make some soup, and go to bed. Drifting blissfully to sleep as the gigantic eldritch being eats away at your very soul without you knowing. Ignorance is bliss, of course. The first time I played this, I was very confused, as there was already a lot of signs that something was off. Besides the fact that my character was literally mute the entire game, and then was speaking to the locals, I remembered that I was horribly disfigured, and everyone would probably be terrified of me or at least want to call the hospital. However, when I went to bed, I still ended up getting the bliss ending. Turns out there are 4 separate things that will alert the player to some shitfuckery of being afoot. The first is that you head to the basement and screw around with the radio until it tells you to go to sleep. A little creepy. The second is this lady left her fetus on the floor. Nice job, Mom. Look through this crack. Nothing weird going on here at all. And then finally, endless hallway. If you see at least 2 of these things, you can notice the problems in your house. You can break the floorboards in your apartment to say hello to about 1,000 sleeping souls and the being, an eldritch creature who makes you and everyone feel just so nice and warm on the inside while slowly feeding on you, probably. Tell the being to fuck off, gently persuade an old partner of yours to have his flamethrower, and burn everyone to death. Kill the being, kill yourself in the process, and the real ending is yours. A perfectly dark and grim ending to a dark and grim story. Who or what was the being? I don't know. I don't care. It's not what matters. What matters is you know the truth and you stopped it. It's a miserable end to a miserable game. And I love that shit.
Yeah, like Bricky said, ignorance is bliss, you know.
So that is Darkwood. I really think the game needs more attention. I want to shout about the horror game that treats its audience like adults and doesn't turn into the haunted house experience. It's tension and fear that feels earned rather than cheaply applied like a picture with too much glue. I want to give a shout out to Mandalore Gaming. He is also a game review channel on YouTube. I saw his video on Darkwood a bit ago, and it's actually what prompted me to play the game. Unfortunately, this review came off maybe a little bit too closely to his. I apologize for that. I think it's
Oh, okay. Didn't know Mandalore covered this game.
just since it's the same game, we echoed a lot of the same points. So I wanted to make it clear that I'm not trying to steal his thunder. He made a really damn good video, and he continues to. So if you'd like to check him out, his link is in the description. Thank you to all the patrons who supported me. I'm sorry this took so long to come out, but February and January took their toll on me. Next up is probably Titanfall 2. Got a lot I want to talk about with that game, and we'll probably have some surprise guests.
Oh,
So I
Titanfall
may do a Warhammer
2,
video in the interim.
baby! Love that fucking game.
Just because I like to discuss my journey to collecting all 3 armies worth of plastic crack. Or if anything, just to satisfy my sunk cost fallacy. So if you'd like to support me on Patreon, especially since uploading fewer videos is obviously harder for YouTube, the link is in the description. That helps me out a ton, especially with these big projects. Also, if you're interested, I'm running a merchandise sale all month of February. Everything is 15% off since I'm doing some transitioning to some new
I
items
gotta
soon.
watch this
Use code
video
BRICK
too.
at checkout.
The timeline of Warhammer 40k lore. Saw that he uploaded it like a couple of days ago.
And you'll be all clear. Works on everything from shirt, hoodie to mugs as well. And it's also in the description at brickymerch.com. Thanks for watching, everyone. I will see you hopefully this month again. Bye.
That's cool. That's very different. Like, I'm used to, yeah, seeing Bricky in the video, cracking jokes. This was way more serious, like an actual proper review. Kinda cool to see that side of him and his channel. And yeah, that game looks hard as fuck, man. That art style is nuts. I love when games have a concrete, like, good art style and art direction. It matters so much more than actual realistic graphics. Love it. Love me a good review like this. Damn, Bricky has some quality content and he's like, you know, he has that range, you know, he covers such variety of topics. Good for him, good for him. And that's everything from me, folks. Thank you very much for watching and continuing to support my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.